Keith, like once I understood Bitcoin, I would go to bed with anxiety at night, feeling short, because I worried that somebody else would figure out what I'd figured out and they would buy it all and I wouldn't be able to buy anymore. And so once you get something and you look out decade or decades, the only issue is, how do I buy more of it?
Yeah, there should be some risk management around this thing, should there not? Or it's just, because buy and hold is not, Michael, that's not something, that's something that companies and executives have been trying to sell me their stock for 20 years have been telling me to do, and I'm just not willing to buy into that.
Well, I didn't buy it to make money in 7 days. I bought it to hold for 30 years.
Yeah,
so why don't you come back to me in 30 years and call me an idiot at that point in time? And it all comes down to time horizon. You're thinking about 12 months. And by the way, Keith, in 12 months, you're probably going to beat me on every single trade. I'm an idiot when it comes to figuring it out in 12 months. In 10 years, I think I'll probably be right. But I made the trade because when I looked out 30 years, all the noise dropped away. And I said, over 30 years, I don't want to be holding government bonds. I don't want to hold corporate debt. I don't want to hold a bunch of big tech equities that are already highly appreciated. I don't want to own gold. I can't figure out what to buy. And I found this thing. And I think it's just extraordinary that we even have the opportunity to buy it at this point in time, because 10 years ago you couldn't.
If you believe in it, why don't you understand it so that you don't buy it at a bad price? There's nothing.
If you believed in it, you wouldn't sell it.
I'm not going to sit there and just romanticize and not understand that the dollar, the other side of the trade, which it's replacing, doesn't have a huge immediate and intermediate term impact on the price of the thing you're buying.
Okay, so Keith, I have a comment on Quad 4. First of all, there's a group of people in the world that you trade with that believe that inflation is equal to CPI, and therefore you can define a Quad 4. There's a group of people that I align with, the Bitcoiners, that believe that the true inflation rate is not CPI, but rather it's the asset inflation rate. It's the rate at which the long bond or the T-bill or equities have been moving up for the past decade, or the expansion of the monetary supply. So if you focus on inflation as CPI, it's 1% or less. If you would focus on inflation as the monetary supply expansion, it's 15%. And I actually think that the inflation rate for the past decade is 20%. If you look at the cost of a 10-year bond that yields $50,000 a year in interest, it went from $1 million to $10 million in 10 years. That's 22% inflation. So there are different, over the near term, if you're trading with people that buy into your CPI definition as inflation, then that works. But if you're looking over the long term and you're trading with people that actually buy into the asset inflation rate as the inflation rate, you come to a different conclusion.
Well,
my last point is, in the near term, Keith, these things work. But over the long term, adoption makes sense. Like all of your arguments about why you should short Facebook in 2013, they're all wrong. Facebook's trading at $280 a share. They're all wrong. You should have never sold it ever, ever, ever. Now, what happens to all these wonderful models if 10 billionaires decide to buy $1 billion of Bitcoin each and announce, we bought it, we're not ashamed of it, we're going to buy more? All your models are destroyed, completely devastated. Bitcoin goes to the moon. Because what really matters is, with Facebook, does it work? Do 1 billion people use it? With Apple, do they buy it? With Google, do they use it? With Bitcoin, will they use it? All the near-term trading models, they'll work for 90 days, 30 days, whatever, as long as everybody else in your trading universe sees the world you see it. But over a decade, over 20 years, over 30 years, the laws of thermodynamics are going to kick into place. And it's pretty obvious, Bitcoin is a better long-term asset than gold or corn futures or soybeans or any company run by a CEO, no matter how august and intelligent they are. They're all just merely mortal. And Bitcoin is something better than that.
It sounds like it. I have no quibbles about that. The more you talk, the more I like that story. I mean, it's not, and again, it's not, we can't, if you want, you can reduce me to just being a trader. I don't think you're trying to do that. But the reality is that it's not about the level of inflation. Never has been, Michael. It's about the rate of change of a price basket of things that are inflating. And that's absolutely what Quad 4 is. Sometimes it's deflating, sometimes it's inflating. You'd have to be a certified idiot to say that oil at a negative oil price, which it was in Q2, which impacted, again, the price of Bitcoin was hostage to Quad 4. This is obeying the laws of thermodynamics. It is the secret to the universe. It is calculus. It's rate of change. So again, I think, and it would be great that if Bitcoin bulls who have the long-term story nailed down would just cede that point. The rates of change, it's not unlike the weather. The rates of change of growth and inflation absolutely impact the price of Bitcoin. And if people knew that, you'd have more people, less concerned or worried about buying Bitcoin because they'd have the confidence to buy it during a hurricane. A hurricane or Quad 4 conditions is when you have disinflation. So I don't know how somebody would refute that. Can you?
Well, Keith, like once I understood Bitcoin, I would go to bed with anxiety at night feeling short because I worried that somebody else would figure out what I'd figured out and they would buy it all and I wouldn't be able to buy anymore. And so once you get something and you look out decade or decades, the only issue is, how do I buy more of this?
Yeah,
that's all we're thinking.
So you should be going to bed at night like feeling great about the next Quad 4 is what I'm saying. Why is it so hard to just say that? This is just we're using math. We're not using narratives here. We're talking about if you understand that the rates of change of economic gravity, we're talking like 101 thermodynamics here, that you don't have to have those anxieties. I have zero feelings about Bitcoin. Zero. And I'm happy about that. That's what I want to store my wealth in. But I want to do it.
Keith, you got to own something, man. At the end of the day, you got a family, you got a company, you got a future. Look out 30 years and try to figure out what you love. Wine, you're going to own that. What's your passion? What is it that you're going to own, that you're going to hold? I would buy into the notion that maybe when, if you got a model and it says Bitcoin is cheap or it's better or whatever, buy more of it. I just think the danger is selling a good thing. I'm not very good at selling my things, Keith. I'm good at buying. Once you find something that you love, you should hold it, because if you sell it to buy it cheaper, then you're betting that other people that have this short-term model are going to act however they're going to act. And you might be right, but you might be wrong. And at the end of the day, if you're buying something that you expect to go up by a factor of 100, then selling it or buying it this year is going to be plus or minus. If you bought Apple stock at $2.25 versus $2.10, it seemed like a big difference back then. But what if you made the mistake and you were short the share and you missed the next $100 run up? I mean, that's the danger of near-term trading. So
yeah, and the opportunity. I don't think this is a debate about trading. If we want to reduce this to you guys are traders and we're the ones who get the long term, that's fine. I've been reduced to I know nothing about long term about anything, including my own company, my own family, my life. I'm just going to get up every morning and do the best I can to understand it and put a risk management wrap around this. If it's truly an asset allocation that one should hold over the period that you're talking about, like forever, there should be some risk management around this thing, should there not? Or it's just because buy and hold is not, Michael, that's not something, that companies and executives have been trying to sell me their stock for 20 years have been telling me to do, and I'm just not willing to buy into that.